everyone, this is Donna Druchunas with Procreate and Tech Tips for the Sequential Artists Workshop. And in this video today, I'm going to talk about Procreate Gestures. So that's things you do by moving things around with your fingers. And some of them use the pencil too, but mostly it's things you do with your fingers to get around and Procreate. So this is our Procreate main gallery, and if you noticed, I just pinched out and in to preview an image. So I'm going to pinch out on that image and it comes up so I can see it larger. And I can swipe right and left to slide through previews of my images. So that just helps when you have all these things on your screen and they're pretty small and you want to see what something is before you open it. So you pinch out, pinch in to close it back, and then swipe right and left to move through. So this is a quick overview of the kinds of gestures, or many of the kinds of gestures you'll find in Procreate. There's gestures like I just showed you that you use in the gallery. There's gestures that you use to manipulate the canvas or the document when you have a file open. There's gestures for layers and brushes, for drawing, for manipulating your layers, painting, erasing, things like that. And then there's a way to customize the gestures to suit yourself. So we're going to go over some of all of these things, but not all of them. There's a lot, and there are a lot of places that you can find out about them. So if you go to YouTube and search for Procreate Gestures, a ton of videos come up. These are the first 4 that came up on my screen. All of them were good. I watched all of them. They were all good at showing you stuff about gestures. Lisa Bardot's videos are always very good, and these other ones were great too. So if you do that, search for Procreate Gestures and look on YouTube, you might find some that you like, and some new people to follow on YouTube. If you prefer, Procreate itself has a user guide that explains all of the gestures with pictures and text. So this is just a screen capture of that, but it's got the interface, gestures, accessibility using the Apple Pencil. So it explains what all the gestures are you can use. It explains the gesture controls, or how to modify the gestures, that I will be showing you more of later. And it even has a thing for using a keyboard with keyboard commands with Procreate. Now I don't have a keyboard plugged in right now, so that won't be something I'm going to show you today, but it is really interesting. So all of those things are there. So let me show you a few gestures for the gallery here. First, in addition to what I showed you about pinching in and out, I have some single drawings, paintings, canvases here on my Procreate gallery, and I have some stacks. You can see that the stack, it looks like it has a pile of different drawings in it. So to make a stack, I can just take one Procreate drawing. I can use my finger or the pencil. I can drag it on top of another one. And now those two are in a stack. When I click on it, I go inside the stack. It's like a folder on your computer. And I can see those 2 images. Now I can take them back out of the stack one at a time, but I can also do things to multiple canvases or drawings with clicking select. So up here on the right, when you're in the gallery, you have this select tool, and you can click and swipe to select multiple things. Now I can move both of these back just into my plain Procreate gallery by just dropping them there, and now they're out of the stack. So now I'm going to take all 3 of these off of my main gallery and put them in my Zoom class stack by selecting them, dragging them, and I'm going to drop them right there. So now they're in that stack where I keep all the stuff that we go over in the Zoom classes for Procreate. So the other thing that you probably have seen, because you can do this on a lot of things on Procreate, is if you swipe left on something, a little menu comes up. In this case, it's share, duplicate, or delete. So the delete's pretty self-explanatory. Be careful you don't hit it by accident. Duplicate makes a copy of that, and it'll be right next to the other one. And share gives you all the things you can do from inside Procreate as well, which is to make a JPEG, PNG, Procreate file, PSD, whatever, of this image. And when you select one, say JPEG, you can share it with individual people, share it with different apps. You can save the image to your photo gallery, you can print it, you can save it to your files, etc., etc. So that's the same thing you can get inside the document as well. Mine says export unsuccessful because I canceled it, and that's okay. I canceled it on purpose because I don't need a copy of this. But the swiping like that works in a lot of places on Procreate. Swiping left gives you a little pop-up menu that usually has share, duplicate, and delete, or some related things to it. So that is gestures for the gallery, the ones that I use a lot. Next up, we'll talk about some gestures for the canvas. So let's open a document. And here's a canvas, a document, an image, a thing I'm working on in Procreate. And I've got a whole bunch of layers in it. You might notice that when I first opened it, it comes up to the biggest size it can be in Procreate, full screen with the menus up. And I automatically take 2 fingers and scale it down a little bit because I like to see around the edges. It doesn't suit me when it's full size. So pinch and zoom. You can go in and out just by spreading or pinching your fingers in. And after you've changed the size and orientation, rotation of the document, everything, if you want to go back to the full-size view, you pinch and let go really fast. So pinch and zoom slowly to just change whatever you want. Pinch and zoom really fast to go back to full size. Pinch out really fast to go back to whatever you were looking at before full size. So say I zoom in really close on her mouth because I want to modify that with some fine detail. Pinch and zoom to go back to the full zoom. Pinch out to go back to whatever I was looking at before the full zoom, which in this case was the close-up on the mouth. So those are the things I use here for modifying the canvas. A couple other things that are related just overall, which is sometimes you might want to move these controls. They're not where you want them. If you quickly pull out from the side, you can slide this up and down and drop it wherever you want, height-wise. You have to do pretty quick. If you do a slow swipe, it doesn't always catch it. Let go where you want it. If you want this slider to be on the other side, you have to go into the gear tool and under Prefs, click right hand interface. Notice it moves over here. That's because the interface is on the right hand. It's probably better on that side for lefties, actually, but they call it right hand interface because the little menu goes on the right side of the screen. I keep it on the left where it defaulted to. Okay, and one more thing to do with this menu while we're there is, say you have a brush selected and you know you can drag up and down in this slider to change the size of the brush. It moves pretty quickly. So it's really sometimes hard to get it to change just 1% or be precise. So while you're dragging it, if you pull your pencil out towards the center of the screen, it slows down the speed of the dragging. So here it's really fast, here it's a little slower, here it's really, really slow, so you can be very precise. And of course, the same thing works on the opacity slider. Okay, so that's some things for the canvas that I find useful. There are, others, but these are the ones that I find that I use all the time. Again, watch some other videos. There are tons of videos on YouTube about Procreate Gestures, and Procreate has a full documentation if you prefer to read instead of watching videos. Next up, I want to show you some gestures that you can use with the layers in Procreate, because there are a lot of things you do with layers. Most everything that I do has layers in it in Procreate, and sometimes I want to manipulate the layers and do different things to the layers. So first thing is obviously getting to them, and the main way is just clicking on this layer icon in the upper right, and then you see a list. Touching a layer once selects it. Selects that layer in the layer list. So that is the active layer. If I draw now, I will be drawing on this layer. Okay, that's touching the layer once, and you can see it gets highlighted. As I said before, a lot of things you can swipe left on, and you get a little menu that has delete, duplicate, and in this case, lock. So if I want to make sure I don't draw on this layer, because I don't want to mess it up, it's finished, I don't want to accidentally draw on it, I can lock it. I swipe left again to unlock it. Okay, so that's the swipe left. For the regular menu for the layer, you just touch it a second time. So touch it once to select or highlight it, touch it again, the main menu comes up. Now I want to show you a couple other touch things with the layer that's really cool. If I touch the layer with 2 fingers, it goes to the opacity slider, and I can use my pencil or finger to slide the opacity level up and down right there on the screen. It's the same thing you get if you click the tiny N and use the opacity slider. But you don't have to click the tiny N, which is a very small target to hit, and you don't have to look at anything else if you do it with the 2-finger touch. So that gives you the opacity slider. Another thing you can do with 2 fingers is touch and hold. And now it has selected, as with the selection tool, everything that is drawn on that layer. And you can see here, if I zoom in, it makes it even clearer. You can see the lines showing what's not selected. So what's selected was, in this layer, everything that was painted. If I click the checkbox for viewing the layer and hold it, everything else will disappear. And so you can see what's selected is what's painted on that layer, which is just the face and a couple of lines. So bring back the other layers. Now I've selected that, I can do whatever I want with hue, saturation, adjustments, color balance, noise. I can use the transform tool, and I have just what's painted on that layer selected. So I can do all kinds of things with that. Another thing that happens if you 2-finger hold, select the layer, and now I'm going to paint on that layer, and I'm going to pick purple because I have no purple there, and I'm going to pick this gouache wash brush. I use it a lot. I'm going to make it really big. If I paint now, because I have the selection made, the painting only comes into the area that's selected. I can't color outside the lines. Okay? So I can color on everything that is in that layer, but I can't color on the blank areas. This is essentially the same as alpha lock. Alpha lock is swiping with 2 fingers on the layer. In the little icon, it comes up with checkers in the background, meaning you cannot paint where the checkers are. You can only paint where the paint already is. So now I do the same thing, and you can see it's essentially the same thing. It colors inside where the face is and not outside. So alpha lock is more permanent. When I go away and come back to this layer, it's still on alpha lock. So if I pick a different pen and start to draw, it still goes only in the area that already had paint on it. and not outside, so we're coloring within the lines. So now we turn Alpha Lock off, and you do that by swiping again with 2 fingers, and then the little checkers go away. Let's just do the click and hold again, and it's selected. I get the same, whoops, had to click my paintbrush. I get the same result, but see, it's selected and it shows the selection icon highlighted. And if I go to do something else and the selection gets turned off, now I can color anywhere. If it's alpha locked, the selection is always on. So that gives you maybe a different look at what alpha lock is. It's like a permanent selection on a layer of selecting what's already painted on that layer. Whereas using the selection tool or the 2-finger hold selection is a temporary selection of what's painted on that layer. So that's something that I find interesting and useful. So there's lots of layer gestures that you may have seen before, like if you want to merge 2 layers like the face and the hair layer here, I can just pinch them together and they become 1 layer. I'm going to undo that with a double click. Double finger tap is undo. Now they're back. You can pinch more than 2 layers. You can pinch as many layers as you want together and they become 1 layer. So all that stuff's on 1 layer now. Again, double tap, undoing things. I'm all the way back to undoing the merge layers. I had to click multiple times because after I merged the layers, I turned them on and off, and undo will do everything. It will turn a layer on, turn a layer off, undo a paint stroke, undo a selection, undoes all those different things. So sometimes if you think you tried to undo something and it didn't work, you might have done a couple extra things you didn't realize, so you might have to click undo a couple times to go back more steps. Okay, so that's interesting. Now here's another thing. I can select any 1 layer, and then if I want to select more layers, just right swipe on them, and now I have multiple layers selected. I can delete a whole bunch of layers at once. I can group them, and I can also duplicate them, which is not always completely obvious because there's no menu item or nothing says duplicate. Let's just do 2 layers for the heck of it. I'm going to pick not the hair, I'm going to pick the face and this outline layer. Face and outline layer. So click 1, right swipe 1, they're both selected. Now to duplicate these is not obvious. I've got them both selected, I'm pressing and holding on them, and I drag them out to the canvas. And now look, here's the ones I had selected. Here's a copy of them at the top of the stack. So that's a way to duplicate layers. Now I'm going to delete those 2 because I don't need a duplicate of them, but I want to show you something else. You can do this with 1 layer or multiple layers. I have these 3 layers. Say I want to put them in another document. I can do the same thing. I can select them all, press and hold, drag them out. With another finger, press gallery, and then I'm still pressing and holding to drag them. I can open another document and then let go. Boom, those 3 layers have been added to this document. Sometimes they come up in the wrong order, and if you had them set to different blending modes or different opacity levels, those settings go away. But it's a way that allows you to copy multiple layers from 1 document into another. So that's the other thing that I found very handy. So those are just a few layer gestures that I use a lot and that I find handy, especially copying multiple layers to other documents. I really like that. Okay, and I'm just going to show you a few brush shortcuts, gestures, whatever. Gestures is what we're talking about. So in your brush library, and I have a ton of brushes because I've imported a bunch and I have the ones that came with Procreate. But in the brush library, you can select a brush by touching it, and you can multiple select by right swiping on other brushes, just like in the layers palette. Whether I have one or more selected, I can press and hold and move them. I can move them up and down in the same folder. I can combine them. That does really weird things, so make sure you make a copy of your brushes by duplicating before you do combining, and you can delete them. So that's really interesting. The combined brushes is a new feature in Procreate that I haven't played with that much. But you can also move them out of this folder and into a different group of brushes. So say these two are in my Donna's Best. I'm going to move them into my favorites. I click there, wait for it, hold it. When it comes up, I move over here, drop them in. Okay, I don't need these here, so I'm going to click and hold, drag them over back to Donna's Best brushes and drop them back in there because that's where I want them. So you can move your brushes around, multiple brushes, one at a time, and so forth with the gestures. Left swipe gives you delete, duplicate, and share. So that's really cool if you have made a brush by yourself or modified a brush and you want to share it. You can export it just like a document, share it with different people, save it to your files, and so forth. So that's kind of neat. Unsuccessful because I canceled it, so that's okay. We already looked at if you have a brush selected and you want to size it and it's moving too fast, how you drag out and slide up and down here, and that slows it down. Another thing you can do is say, I really like this brush at 30%. When I have it at 30% here with my slider or my pencil down, I can click it and then click the plus, and it adds a little line there so I can easily go back to that size. Can add multiple ones, so now I have an 8% one here and a 30% one. I think you can add up to 5 saved sizes for each brush, something like that. So that is a handy setting for your brushes. Okay, so we've looked at some gestures for the gallery view in Procreate, the canvas, the layers of brushes. I'm going to show you what I find most interesting about the gestures in Procreate is that you can change them all to be what you want. For instance, usually swiping down with 3 fingers brings up a cut and paste menu. And I don't like to do that because I had a hard time getting the 3 fingers and getting it to work while I was holding the pencil. So I changed it to 4-finger tap. So when I tap with 4 fingers, which I find easy to do, the copy and paste menu comes up. So how did I do that? I went up here in the upper left to the gear wrench control, and then I went down, 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 and I found gesture controls. If you go into gesture controls, you'll see there's a bunch of things that you can change how you access it. So smudge, I don't use a gesture control or a shortcut for smudge. I just pick it. I don't use the smudge tool a lot. I have other ways of blending colors, which may be a future video. But you can say anytime you use a finger, it smudges. You can set that. You can touch it to the Apple Pencil always smudges, which I think is weird because most of us draw with the Apple Pencil. You can check this little square plus touch or square plus Apple Pencil and make that happen. So what is that? On your main screen in Procreate, when you're in a document, there's a little square here. When you click on it, it does different things. And if you click on it and touch with your Apple Pencil or your finger, it can do different things too. So this is a little shortcut tool that you can set to do different things. In my case, you can see I have it when I set it once, touch it once, it brings up the color picker. I set that way because I like to access the color picker that way. So again, that's in the gesture control. So you can set smudge to different settings. Same thing for erase. Your finger can always be eraser, your Apple Pencil, or you can use the square plus the finger or square plus the Apple Pencil to make it become an eraser. Assisted drawing is where the grid comes up. A grid comes up, and there's multiple grids you can choose, and it makes it so you can only draw straight lines on whatever the grid is. Used for perspective drawings a lot, something that's a little more advanced that we'll go into. But again, you can use different ways to bring that up. Eyedropper, that's what I just showed you, the color picker. I have it set to tap the square. You can have it set, and I think this is a default, where anytime you touch the screen with your finger, it automatically picks the color. You can set it to touch and hold, Apple Pencil double tap, and so forth. Quick shape is defaulted to draw and hold, but you can change it. So let me show you what quick shape is with draw and hold. Let's turn off all the layers except one color one, make a new layer, and I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to draw a sloppy triangle and not pick up my pencil at the end. It straightens out. Whoops, it wasn't quite a triangle. I made 4 sides. Let's try that again. I make my brush fatter so it shows up more. 1, 2, 3, hold. It straightens out the shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. It straightens out the shape. Now there's more you can do with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. It straightens out the shape, but if I put my finger down also, whoops, that's not a good enough shape. That was too sloppy. If I get it pretty close, put my finger down, it changes it to a perfect square. Same thing with a circle, smooth the lips, put my finger down, it changes it to a perfect circle. If I do a triangle, put my finger down, it changes it to a equilateral triangle, but mine was too messed up, so it could not recognize that. So you have to be a little bit accurate in your drawing to get it to work. You can't just say, okay, I want this to be a square. Maybe I can, but on sometimes, if I'm too messy, my ends didn't match up or something, it didn't work. But generally, draw and hold is what makes it straighten out a shape. So in the gesture controls settings, I can change that to be, let's just say, tap the square. Ooh, look, I clicked tap the square to make that work for quick shape, and it gave me a little error because it was on my eyedropper. But we'll use it for quick shape for now. It still lets you do it, but it had popped up a little warning there for a second. Okay, now I have this thing set for quick shape. So I'm going to draw a thing and then touch that, and it straightens it out. When you do that, an edit shape thing comes up, and you can pick square, different options. You can make it a square that way, and you can drag these around to fine tune it. But so I can do that, click that, it makes it a nice circle. So I changed the way to get to the quick shapes by adding the tap, the square, in addition to the draw and hold. Now I'm going to put my eyedropper back to tap the square because that's why I like it. And watch, when I click it, a little error is going to come up by quick shape because I already have tap for that. See, it's so, whoops, it went away really quickly. But it comes up to warn you that you have that feature, that option already used for something else. Now when I go back, when I tap that, my color picker comes back up because I changed it back to that. Okay, back to gear gesture controls. Quick menu is a super handy one. This is where you can make a menu that has your favorite things on it. I use Apple double tapping my pencil to bring it up. You can use all these other different ways, tapping, 4-finger tap, touch and hold. You can pick which gesture you like. I like the Apple double tap for that. So yeah, so when I'm here, if I tap my pencil twice, this quick menu comes up. And I've put things that I like on it that I use a lot, like go to my previous brush, select the layer contents, Liquify. I use Liquify a lot. That's a fun and useful little feature where you can just distort things. So there, I liquefied that. I can turn that off. Double tap brings up my menu that I choose. Now to change what's on the menu, super easy. You just press and hold one of the things and you can pick whatever you want to be here. So right now this is on transform tool. I can change it to smudge. There, it's changed. Now when I touch it, I'm in smudge mode. So quick menu is really cool. I'm going to change this back to transform tool. It's a fast way for me to get to the transform tool without moving my hand all the way up there. So you can add anything you want to the quick menu, and you can add more quick menus. I think that makes it not so quick, so I just leave one, but I could add a second quick menu, and I could go back and forth between them and add whatever I want. Notice the new one has no action on all the buttons, so I would have to set each one to what I want, open adjustments, whatever. I only use the first quick menu because if you add more, to me, it's not quick anymore. You have to dig through the menus. But that's a nice thing that lets you bring up other things quickly that you use a lot. There's a full screen that gets rid of the menus. I don't use that at all, so I have it turned off. There's a clear layer that is scrub. You can change it to 3-finger swipe, 4-finger tap, etc. So what does the scrub do? It's set to 3-finger scrub right now, and it erases everything that's in the selected layer. So right now I have this layer where I drew and liquefied stuff selected. If I go back and forth with 3 fingers, it empties the layer. The layer is still there, but it erased everything that's in that layer. All right, back to gesture controls. The copy and paste menu, as I said, it's usually 3-finger swipe to bring that up. I changed it to 4-finger tap. You can choose all different ways to bring it up, touch and hold, all these different gestures. You can assign them to whatever you want. Layer select, which means select a layer that's under what you touch. That's real interesting. Let's turn all these layers on again. If I go back and see in my gesture controls, I had layer select to square plus Apple Pencil. Okay, so now I'm going to go square, touch the square, put my Apple Pencil down. It's going to show me what layers are where I am. And sometimes there's a bunch of layers that are piled up. Now I can pick whichever one I want. Was I going for the face or was I going for the background? When I let go, if you look in the layers palette, the layer that I had picked there is selected. So I set that again to touch this and then use the Apple Pencil to drag around. I like to have a way to select a layer without, especially when I have tons of them, without scrolling through this list. So I use that feature for that. Back to the gesture control, you can pick a few different options for how to access it. And then this last one on the bottom is really useful. I find that I only want to draw with my pencil. I don't draw with my finger. I don't smudge with my finger. I don't want to accidentally touch the screen with my finger and draw something. So disable touch actions. That means fingers only do gestures. Fingers do not paint or draw or erase or smudge. So I have disabled touch actions. You can turn off undo and redo if you find that you accidentally are touching the screen with 2 or 3 fingers and undoing and redoing things by accident. You can turn that off. Rotate with pinch zoom, and the new thing is enable 3D painting with finger. I don't mess with 3D, so I haven't played with that. Rotate with pinch zoom. You've seen me do that before. When I pinch and zoom, I can also rotate my canvas. If I go into gesture controls and turn off rotate with pinch zoom in the general settings, then I cannot rotate it. I can only make it bigger and smaller. Personally, I like to rotate it, because when I'm drawing a lot of times I want it to be diagonal to match the angle of my hand when I'm doing something, and I don't always move the whole iPad. Sometimes I just move the image. Okay, so that's about all I wanted to share with you today with gesture controls. Remember, there's tons of YouTube videos and a Procreate documentation on this where you can go in and look up every single gesture control and option that exists in Procreate. And I hope you'll do that and you'll figure out which ones are most useful for you.